Hey guys, it's Holly. Welcome back to my channel. Whether you are viewing me on TikTok or YouTube or wherever you're seeing me, thank you for being here. So today I thought I would do a brief video on our parents getting older and how that can affect us mentally and emotionally and as well as physically. But I'm going to put this in my mental and emotional wellness playlist because I really feel strongly about how this can affect us. And so I want to make some brief points and share briefly my experience as well. And hopefully it can help somebody. So, a little background on me. My parents are in their early 60s, and I did not notice up until just a few years ago that right about the time COVID hit, I guess, is when they really started to go downhill. And I know this is true for a lot of people because when COVID hit and the last few years, the inflation, everything else that's been going on has really done a number on people. But regardless of what happened, the last few years have been really depressing for me. And I mean upsetting to the bone. And though my parents are not to the point where they're, like, I don't know what you would like, incapacitated, they're still functional, they do stuff, they move around, but it's really hard watching how much a person can age within such a short period of time because I went from viewing them as, seeing it like they were, in my mind, they were like 50. And then a couple of years ago, and now all of a sudden it's like they're like 70. And that is, it's been really hard for me to watch that. To watch them age a good 15 to 20 years in just 2 to 3 years' time. And so I think they kind of feed off each other in a sense of the depression. They both struggle with that. And I think they choose not to be happy, which is a huge thing. It's important to always have something that makes you happy and try your best to do the best you can in life. At the end of the day, at least you did your best, regardless of what the outcome was, ultimately. But yeah, to make a long story short, they've just aged so much, and I see this mentally, physically. The appearance has completely changed with both of my parents. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm looking at prunes all of a sudden, and I find it remarkable how a person can age that fast. And I honestly find it really scary. And so I really feel like most of this has been mental with them. Like they have just come to the conclusion that, hey, we're older, so we're just old now. And that happens with a lot of people, and that's very unfortunate. But there's a big difference between accepting getting older and that you might have some more somewhat limited functions physically, mentally, cognitively. There's a difference between accepting and succumbing to it and deciding that, oh, I'm just old now. I can't picture myself ever being like that, even if I was like 80 years old. I just can't. But that is where they are. And so what's really weird to me too is that my parents both had cancer. My mom, it was 2013, and my dad, it was like 2017, I want to say. So my mom had colon cancer, so hers was like far worse. But fortunately, it was caught in the fairly earlier stages, so it was like a stage 2, and she did fully recover from that, and is able to live a mostly normal life. She is partially disabled, but not to any major extent. And then my dad had prostate cancer in 2017, and his was not so bad. It was just radiation treatments for him for about 8 weeks. That was it. And so what's really ironic is that I did start noticing going slowly downhill after that, but it was it was much more minimal. So to think that they could go through all of that and not really age substantially, but yet all of a sudden, just in the last couple years, boom. I mean, it's hard to watch that, especially the younger you are. Like maybe if you're a younger person and your parents had you when they were older, like maybe if they had you in their upper 30s into their 40s or even 50s and beyond, because that is very common. And my parents had me when they were like 28 and 29. So, in my opinion, I think that's pretty young. Um, I don't really put an age on what I feel like is normal for a person to have children because I feel like that's got to be their own individual life and what works for them and what happens in their own life. So, that's just what happened. I was the youngest. But yeah, it's just really upsetting to watch the decline, and especially when it's happening rapidly. And now, yes, I know it could be a lot worse because my parents are still functional. They do not even technically have any health problems, technically. Um, but they are constantly tired, constantly depressed, and very, very seemingly stuck in life. And it's like if we go somewhere, like we all went down to visit my brother's family in Houston, and we live in the Dallas area. So a 3.5 to 4 hour drive. I think we went down there, we stayed a couple nights in a hotel, and then we came back, and me and my little family, we were driving separate from my parents. Um, but when we got home, um, it literally took them like 3 days to recover from this trip. And it was only like a 3.5 to 4 hour drive. And it's like, I called them a couple days later and they're like, oh yeah, we're still recovering. And then the next day, and it was like, I get being older, but it's like, I don't know. It's just, regardless of whether or not that's normal, which obviously it is, a lot of people are like that, but it's not normal to me because it's like in my mind, I'm seeing these are my parents, these are the people that have always been there for me and that have always helped me. And that brings me to my ultimate main point that I want to make is that it's hard to go from feeling like they're there for you because they've been there for you your whole life, at least hopefully, and then all of a sudden they're less there for you. Like, so in my instance, like, my parents have been there for me to an extent in some ways, definitely not in others, but nevertheless, I'm thankful for the times they have been there for me. Even though I ultimately do feel like it has not been near enough, especially in adulthood. And I'm not talking in terms of like financial matters or monetary help. I'm talking in terms of like physically, like times that I've literally had emergencies and not had anyone come to help, especially with my kids. And so that's been really hard for me. But my point is that emotionally is just so draining to go from having even a little bit of help, I guess you could say, even someone to call and talk to all of a sudden, seeming like, I mean, my mom, I still talk to her. My dad, I talk to him a little, not so much on the phone. I talk to my mom on the phone quite a bit. But my point is, it's really hard when all of a sudden they're just not really there for you anymore, or not there for you as much. And I know that it's only going to progress and it's only going to get worse on the decline as the months and years go by. At this point, it is rapidly, I guess, digressing month by month. Like, literally, that's how rapidly the decline is with them physically and mentally. And so that's been really hard. But, obviously, it's going to be a lot harder for someone that has parents that are in a nursing home or in, a parent that has a true health problem or cancer, whatever it may be, a severe case of diabetes. It could be anything. It could be COPD, all of these different things. And so obviously it's going to be worse for people in those scenarios. And I guess I just feel like it's been like ripping off a band-aid over the last couple of years. But in the same point, some things have also happened slowly. But it has definitely affected me. And honestly, it has been I really feel like the number one source of my depression over the last few years. And really over the last several years. It's been a huge source of depression for me and anxiety as well because, just like knowing that you can't rely on some immediate family that was always there for you in the past, it's very hard. And some families are simply more family oriented than others. I do not come from a super family oriented family. And I've said this before, I've talked quite a bit about it, I guess. Not as much as I want to. I have a lot more I do want to go into. But ultimately, my goal of this video is just to simply, I guess, let people know they're not alone. If your parents are getting older or you're close to someone else that's going through a similar situation, maybe it's a far worse situation. Maybe your parents are, or one or the other. It could be your mom or your dad or both. Maybe they are getting to a point where maybe it's Alzheimer's or dementia. That's a big one. My grandmother had that. And so I watched the decline of that as well as a child. And that was very hard. So it could be something like that. But regardless of the situation, I think just, connecting with other people, support groups, knowing that you're not alone. Support groups online are particularly helpful, but also in person. And just reaching out to friends, other family if you can. I'm just not super close to any family members, be it immediate or distant. I try to be as close as I can to my parents, but yeah, sometimes I really have to distract myself and just remember that this is just a natural part of life, and the younger you are, the harder it is. Like I said before, I am 32, so I think I always envisioned not seeing this happening until I was literally like in my 50s. I really just didn't think. Obviously by the time I'm 50, my parents will be in their 80s, but I just did not think that that would be the case. And I also want to remind people, that your life is very valuable. It's very precious, and don't waste your time. Do meaningful things. Not to say you shouldn't relax, but, make use of your life. Don't spend too much time watching TV, gaming, doing a lot of nothingness. Spend your life interacting with those around you, appreciating those around you, because one day, it's just not going to be the same. Things won't always be the way they are now. But anyways, those are just a few points I wanted to point out, share my own experience, and hopefully, just kind of help to normalize the fact that your parents getting older can be very depressing, and it can really wear on you mentally and emotionally, and it can cause anxiety. It can cause a lot of mental strife. So I hope this video helps. But I'll see you guys in my next video. If you would like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Or share the content on any kind of social media, anywhere you want to share it. Email it to a friend, whatever. And I love you guys so much. Bye.